Hello everyone, it's Karamo. Hello everyone, and this is Karamo once again. And I have a short demonstration that I wanted to show you all, and it's about how do we convert a data set from the wide format into a long format for easy analysis. Okay, so let me show you the kind of data set I'm talking about. Yeah, we have it here. Okay, so this data set is about an expense that was made in specific year, and then we wanted to convert this data set from the wide format as it is currently into a long format for easy analysis and trying to generate some insight from this data. So the data set is in this way, in the wide format. It's pretty neat, yeah, but if you wanted to do some exploration on this data, to do some fancy plotting, generate some insights, it's okay this way. If you are more conversant with Excel, it's okay. But then I also want to show you another method in R programming that can help you to analyze this data without having to work with it in its original wide format. That means we have to do some little transformation of this data and have it in a long format, and then you dirty your hands with it. Okay, so let's go to R and let me quickly show you what I mean. So we have our R studio. So we're gonna create a new R script that we're working with. Cool. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna load some libraries that we'll be using for this transformation. So we're using data.table, dplyr package, and also read Excel. Cool. So these three libraries that we'll be using for this demonstration. So after that, we will go ahead to load our data. Yeah, so we will now load our data set. So we create an object called CAGS. Read underscore Excel, and the name of our file is expenses.xlsx. Good. So we have our data set loaded in our global environment with 12 observations and 13 variables. And this data set currently is in a wide format. So you will realize that if we convert it in a long format, we will not have only 12 observations. The observations will be more than 12, but the variables will also be less than 13. So we will see the difference as we progress. Okay. So now if we want to see the sample head of this data, just probably the first 6 rows of this data, just bring in head cuts, and we have the first 6 rows of this data. This will help you to glimpse what kind of data is it and how this data looks like. All right. So what we wanted to do, the purpose of this video is to transform this data set from its wide format into a long format. So currently it is in wide format, and let's transform this in a long format. But first, there is something that we see. The variable name here, the variable expenses, is pretty long. It's in 2 different words. So in case we wanted to use this for any exploration, we have to put this in quotations. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to change this name from having it as variable expenses to just expense. All right. So rename some variable. Okay, so we're going to rename variable expenses as just expenses instead of having it as variable expenses. It's pretty long, right? So let's make it something short and easy to remember. Okay, so we create another object called CAGS1. CAGS1, and we are going to bring in the name of our data frame that we just loaded called CAGS. And we bring in the pipe operator, the percentage greater than percentage, the pipe operator. So what this function does is it's going to pipe whatever we have from the left side to the right side that we're going to include here. So we said CAGS, and then we want to rename a variable from CAGS, and the new variable name that we wanted to bring in is expense, and this is going to be expense is going to replace variable expense. So variable expense. So that's all we need to do, and you run these codes. Voila. Can variable expense doesn't exist, so it should be expenses. Yep. Cool. So now if we click this another one, CAGS1, we will realize that the variable name is now expense. And the first one, the variable name was variable expenses. So we changed the name from variable expenses to the new one, CAX1 as expense. That's pretty neat. Okay, so let's go ahead and then transform this data set to a wide format. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna use something called melt. Yeah, we're gonna melt the whole data set into a long format. So what we're going to do in melt, we're going to create another object again called CAX2. CAX2, and then we bring in melt. So what data are we going to melt? CAX1, right? So we said data is equals to CAX1. Good. So now we bring in our id vars. id.vars is equals to the variable that we have here that we were going to maintain that one called expenses. So if you click in CAX1, we have expense. So it's going to be expense. Okay, so we bring in our value, variable dot names. It should be name. Variable the name is equals to, okay, so when we go back to our table again, so these are our variables that we have, right? And this is what we want to change. So this, we're gonna give only a single name to represent each of these, so to represent all of these variables. So instead of having it as January, February, March, 2, 3, it's pretty long and boring, so we're just gonna say a month. So variable.name, we have months. And then the next thing is value.name. So the value.name, when we go back to our table, we have the content of our data, 160 and so on. So we're going to give a specific name that's going to represent these values. We said cost or item purchased, right? So let's just say cost for simplicity. So we said cost. And after that, we close the bracket from here, and then that's all we need to do. Let's run this code and see if there's any error. Cool. We only have warning, but there is no error. And if you look at the global environment, we realize that CAX2 is loaded. So now, before we have 12 observations, but now we have 144 observations and 3 variables. So before the variable was 13, and the variable now reduces to just 3. So we're gonna have glimpse of this data. Let's see the first 6 rows of this data. So we said see the first 6 of this data, and then we bring our head function and type CAX2. We want to see the first 10 rows. So if you want to see the first 6 rows, you type 6 or 10. Tokoi, all is okay. And then here. So these are dataset now. Instead of having this dataset in this wide format, it's pretty junky a little bit, but now we have it in long format. It's just neat and tidy. And we can view this as the way it is here as view CAX2. Cool. So these are dataset. Make it maximized more. Good. So now these are dataset. Now we have it in a long format. So I think this way is pretty easy to analyze this data this way, right? Babysitter, business lunch, clothing, groceries, and so on. We have it this way. It's pretty neat. And then we have the expenses, we have the month, we have the cost, right? So if you look at the months, we have August, September, October. So that's pretty easy. If you wanted to analyze this data set more by month, or looking at the average cost by month, you just have the group by, do some data wrangling processes on this data set, and that's pretty easy. So that's all I wanted to show you in this demonstration, and thank you very much. I hope you really enjoyed the video. Have a good time and Happy New Year.